Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Bell, and to start us off, I'll be giving us an overview on the lesson that we adapted. Our lesson is called The Impact of Decision Fatigue, and it's a B2 listening lesson focused on psychology and real life decision making. It's designed for multilingual learners at the upper immediate level. So the lesson walks students through three main stages: before listening, while listening, and after listening. Before listening, students talk about their own experiences with making decisions and preview key vocabulary. Then, during the listening section, they answer multiple choice questions and fill in missing words from the audio. After listening, they discuss the concept more deeply and complete short writing tasks. In terms of what it teaches, the content goals include helping students understand what decision fatigue is and how it affects people in different professions. And then the language goals focus on academic vocabulary, like listening for specific information and practicing structured writing and speaking. One thing we thought was already very strong about this lesson is about how accessible it is for multilingual learners. The vocabulary matching and discussion questions activate background knowledge before the harder listening part, which lines up with the scaffolding ideas that we've read about in class. The listening tasks are also well structured, and the after listening activities let students make personal connections, which supports confidence and a deeper language use. So, overall, the lesson already has a lot of strengths in both content and language support.
Hi, everybody. This is Jackie, and I'm going to be going over this portion of our presentation, which is our intentional activity adaptations that we did add to the original lesson. So our main goal with this is to support multi-level, multilingual students as well as multicultural students, and to go over broadly some bullet points about what we wanted to add, which I will later go into why and why these things are supportive for students. But we want to allow students to use visual supports, allow students to use their home language, provide specific and multiple cultural diverse scenarios as prompts, allow students to respond in a multimodal manner, provide sentence framing, offering word glossing, allowing students to listen to audio multiple times, and to allow students to choose their form of reflection. So these are all the adaptations that we think would be beneficial to this lesson for multilingual students. Moving into why, we wanted to highlight the reasons behind our adaptations and why we think that they would help students understand better and make this lesson overall more accessible for multilingual learners. Firstly, we wanted to talk about visual supports and how in this lesson there's a lot of vocabulary and vocabulary matching, and how adding in visual supports with vocabulary can really help students kind of connect the dots on what they already know. And this can also help reinforce new concepts as well as old concepts by kind of jogging their memory. And this goes back to one of the readings that we read, where Cummins explains that students succeed when linguistic scaffolding allows them to demonstrate their full cognitive abilities. And this allows students to be more flexible and provide an understanding of their own learning comprehension. So, really, this kind of also connects to multimodal answering in general and just providing lots of resources for students to grab from. Next is allowing students to use their home languages in their answering. So this would allow students to maybe complete vocabulary activities in their own language that they learned first rather than in English, because this allows students to show that they do understand a concept, but maybe that they don't know how to communicate that yet. And so this goes back to a recent reading we did where we kind of measured out students' intelligence versus their vocabulary and how they're not directly connected. So this allows teachers to understand, is this student unable to understand, or are they just unable to communicate quite yet? Thirdly, we wanted to provide specific and multiple cultural diverse scenarios as prompts. And this is so that we could curate specific prompts for students in order for nobody to feel like maybe they don't relate to a prompt. We noticed that some of the prompts in the original lesson are a little bit vague and maybe wouldn't relate to a multicultural student learning English. Fourthly, allowing students to respond in a multimodal manner. This kind of connects overall and how we really do just want to allow students to show teachers what they do know instead of what they don't know. So, whatever way a student feels like they can communicate their understanding best will not only benefit teachers, but also allow the student to reinforce their knowledge and also show what they are confident in. Providing sentence frames. This goes back to what we were talking about throughout class, where we have teachers basically explaining to students options of what they're looking for, keywords before starting a lesson. So this kind of jogs a student's memory. It gets them understanding what they should be looking out for and kind of preps them for a lesson. So providing sentence frames displays to learners examples of what a strong response might look like. So this allows students to receive support before they even start on their own. And this is also something that could be done independently, as well as keyword glossing for the listening portion of the lesson. This allows students to understand what words they should be looking for, what words they should understand, and what words can help them overall understand everything better. These two kind of go hand in hand with providing clear expectations before the lesson begins, and this allows students to understand their expectations independently before they go on listening. And then finally, allowing students to choose their form of reflection. This also connects to multimodal answering, and how overall, if a student has a reflection that actually does portray their understanding, this really allows teachers to understand how confident this student is and what level of understanding they do have, whether it be they want to display in writing, drawing, comics, or video. This allows teachers and students to kind of test their knowledge and displays what these students are most confident in.
We're now going to discuss some of the limitations and potential improvements for this lesson plan. One of the main activities is a vocabulary matching task, where students are supposed to match words from the left side of a column to the related concepts and synonyms on the right side of the column. An example of two words they're supposed to connect are imprisoned and confined. But students might not be familiar with many of these more advanced words. Some of them won't be able to complete this activity by themselves because it is outside of their zone of proximal development or what they can achieve with guided support. One potential improvement to aid these students could be to make the activity paired group work. As Gibbon's Chapter 3 explains, students are able to achieve more together than separately, especially in a more comfortable environment, which is created through this group work. Many English learners, as Gibbon's Chapter 3 explained, feel more comfortable engaging and sharing ideas when they're in a group setting. And as TESOL Principle Number 2 states, educators must try to create an emotionally positive environment to reduce student anxiety, which helps increase participation and engagement. And this could be achieved through making this activity a paired group work. The lesson could also be improved by replacing one of the columns with the synonyms and related concepts with images. So this could create scaffolding for students with lower levels, but to also involve the group work, one student could be given the word and the other could be given the image. And the student with the picture would have to describe this image without showing it to the other student. And this student, their partner, would have to find the corresponding word in their column. The students could also switch roles halfway through. And this improvement helps create a fun game that challenges the students while also reducing anxiety. And the task requires communication due to the information gap. One student has the image and the other has the word. And Gibbon's Chapter 3 explains that having an information gap is absolutely crucial for successful group work, as both students actually have to talk to complete the activity. Some more limitations and potential improvements. This lesson does not acknowledge the political, social, and economic structures that shape our society. And as Nieto Chapter 3 explains, this is absolutely crucial. Educators must challenge unequal structures, policies, and practices in society in order to have students be fully educated members of society. One of the questions after students listen to an audio clip was for them to determine the most surprising factor influencing judges' parole decisions, and the only options, based on the video, were the prisoner's age, the time of day, the length of the trial, and the lawyer's arguments. But this video and the question doesn't provide any opportunity to discuss how factors like racial bias also play a role in the judicial system. So some potential improvements here could be for the teacher to include a short lesson on the role race and economic status have in courts. The teacher could also assign extra group readings and have class discussions. It would be very important for the teacher to establish a safe classroom environment where difficult topics like this can be discussed. The teacher should set guidelines like respectful language and not interrupting other students.
Okay, I am going to there we go. Sorry. Okay, so I'm Kate, and I'm going to talk about the adaptation to the lesson plan. So we had a lesson plan about decision making, as all of my group members have already talked about. Okay, so first, the section of the lesson plan that I chose, we had a couple sections that we would add, but one of them that I thought was super important was this is the post audio. So after they've listened to the audio, this is one of the things they do afterwards to help them make sure they understand what they're talking about. So this part is the vocabulary review. So it says choose 5 words from the vocabulary matching activity and write a short paragraph using all 5 words in a meaningful context. So first, I think this is a great activity. I think it's important because it helps students connect both writing and vocabulary, which I think are both difficult things, as I've seen in some tuties that I have worked with, that just like connecting the it's easy for them to learn the vocabulary words, but then to have to write about them is a little bit harder. Just the writing involves the grammar and all that. They're both important when it comes to skill learning. And then on this, it was one of the extra readings in the perusal, and it's in Towards a Language-Based Theory of Learning by Halliday. It talks a lot about her thing talks a lot about it emphasizes a step into grammar and using it to write as a using it right as a critical step in an L2's journey. I just was reading this article or her work of writing as I was preparing for this, and it just talked a lot about stepping in both speaking and writing, like stepping out of just the simple words and the simple sentences like that, and implementing like complex and implementing grammar, and just how difficult it can be. And then I wanted to connect that also with Gibbons in chapter 4. It goes even further to add the importance of tone and style. I remember he talked a lot about it talked a lot about how it's just important to realize that writing is not just grammar. Like even I struggle with writing, and I speak English. So as an L2 English learner, I can imagine how difficult it would be. And that's what came to mind when I was thinking of this activity, because it's not only just writing, but it's also connecting vocab and writing, which could be very difficult for an L2 learner to write a full paragraph having to use vocab words. It could be very daunting to have to like even just write one sentence or remember what the vocab word is after doing all these activities. So I had a couple ways to make this easier for them and help scaffold their learning. So sorry if the slide's a little weird. The picture was being weird. Anyways, so our idea was how to improve this part would be to have the students write a couple sentences about a vocab word, so have it split up. So keep the same activity because I think it's important for them to connect that, and then because that will help connect like vocab and writing together. And yeah. And so to write a couple sentences about the vocab and then either provide a visual, or I have done it, or I think it's super helpful to have them draw their own visual, because then it's like, okay, I can read, I can see their reading, I can see their writing, I can see what they're talking about, and then I can see, okay, yes, they do understand, like I saw it in their writing, but also I'm confirmation in their drawing, just seeing that they're able to draw and show that. I think also it adds an element just to break it up, where it's like not just like, all right, here you go, write a paragraph of using two vocab words go. Like I feel like the drawing or the help of the visual breaks it up where it's like they are still writing and they are still having to use grammar, having to use the vocab word, having to figure out the style of how they need to write the sentence. Is it a simple sentence? Is it a complex sentence? Do they need their sentence to be a more a happy tone, or is it more like the vocab words are more solemn, so they need a more tone like that, or the style that they need to write it. I think even with a couple sentences, they can get that in there. So I think it's important to break it up. So I have an example here. If the word was exhaustion, which was one of the words that was in our lesson plan, then it could work as follows. And this is just a sample sentence I came up with. Might not be perfect, but John has been working for many hours without any sleep, and so his exhaustion made him ready to go home, eat dinner, and go to bed. So this could show that they know what exhaustion means. It means like weary and you just are beyond tired. And then I just added a picture of when I found that was of exhaustion. So either the teacher could write an image, because that also could, if there's an image below it, then if they don't know the vocab word or don't know what to write, they could look at the image and describe what the image is, and that could also stem other vocab words. Like they could say lay down, or they could say they were working at their desk, and I just think it could help. Or if they're maybe more advanced, or you feel like they know what they're talking about, then they could draw the image after they've written. Um, Either way, it just breaks it up or gives them a guide with the image below it. I think either of those would be helpful and not as discouraging to them. It also would help the student know if the teacher was if the teacher would know if the student's understanding, just to be able to see, okay, they wrote the sentences, they have the image, or they use the image to write the sentences. We can move on. They know what exhaustion means or whatever. Another addition I had is I just loved how Gibbons in chapter 3 talked about the importance of peer work, and how one of the quotes that really stuck out to me reading that was peer scaffolding is at times as useful as that provided by the teacher. That just learning from your peers and discussing things with your peers can be super helpful. So you could even have them work in groups. So for this activity, they could get in a group and do the first vocab word together. Be like, I think it means this, and then write it down. Or you could have them do the whole thing together. I just feel like bouncing ideas off each other. I think writing might be a little hard to do group work, but I think it's still possible and still able to help. Yeah, that's just one of the ideas I had for this writing activity. I pulled the writing activity because I feel like what I've seen is that my students really struggle with writing, and so I think it's important to have a writing section, but also adapt it to the L2 learners, because writing is really hard for me and for them. And so just having these, breaking it up to make it less discouraging, having them work with peers. Yeah. So that's all I had. Yeah.